The year was 1970. Gas was cheap, horsepower was king, and Chevrolet built a monster called the LS6 Chevelle SS. Fast forward to today, and one of these beasts just sold for enough money to buy a mansion in most states. Barrett-Jackson has seen some incredible Chevelle sales over the years, but the top car on today's list, it made history and proved that American muscle can command Ferrari money. If you love classic American muscle and jaw-dropping auction prices, hit that like button and subscribe, because we're about to dive deep into automotive history. The Chevrolet Chevelle SS. Just hearing those two letters, SS, gets the blood pumping for any red-blooded American car guy. Born in the golden age of muscle cars, when Detroit was locked in an all-out horsepower war, and nobody gave a damn about gas mileage, the Chevelle SS became the stuff of legends, especially when Chevy dropped that monstrous LS6454 big block under the hood. But here's the thing about legends. They don't come cheap. And when you're talking about the cream of the crop, the absolute best examples that have survived 5 decades of street racing, garage storage, and restoration projects, you're looking at prices that would make your grandfather roll over in his grave. These aren't just cars anymore. They're rolling pieces of American history, and collectors are willing to pay through the nose to own them. Barrett-Jackson, the granddaddy of all collector car auctions, has been the battleground for some of the most expensive Chevelle sales ever recorded. We're talking about numbers that could buy you a nice house in most parts of the country, all for cars that originally sold for less than $5,000 when they were new. Today, we're counting down the 5 most expensive Chevy Chevelles ever sold under the Barrett-Jackson hammer. From rare convertibles to numbers-matching monsters, these machines represent the absolute pinnacle of muscle car collecting. And when you see what number one brought at auction, you're going to need to sit down and pour yourself a stiff drink. So buckle up, because we're about to take a ride through the most expensive Chevelle sales in Barrett-Jackson history, and trust me, these numbers are going to blow your mind. Number 5. 1970. Chevrolet Chevelle SS 454 LS6 M22 $192,500. Coming in at number 5, we've got a 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle SS 454 LS6 that hammered for $192,500 at Barrett-Jackson Palm Beach in 2025. Now, before you start thinking that's chump change for an LS6 Chevelle, let me put this in perspective for you. Back in 1970, you could buy this exact car brand new for $4,475. That means this baby appreciated over 4,000%. Try getting that kind of return on your 401k. But this wasn't just any LS6 Chevelle. This beast came equipped with the legendary M22 Rock Crusher 4-speed transmission. Now, if you know your muscle car history, you know the M22 was the heavy-duty gearbox that Chevy built specifically to handle the brutal torque of the LS6 engine. It got its nickname from the distinctive whining sound it made, a sound that was pure music to the ears of drag racers and street warriors back in the day. The LS6 454 was an absolute monster. We're talking 450 horsepower and 500 pound-feet of torque straight from the factory. In 1970, that was enough power to embarrass just about anything on the road, including most of the exotic European sports cars that cost twice as much. This was American muscle at its finest, raw, brutal, and unapologetic. What made this particular sale special wasn't just the drivetrain, though. This Chevelle had undergone a complete frame-off restoration that brought it back to better-than-new condition. The original cranberry red paint looked like you could dive into it. The black vinyl interior was flawless, and most importantly, for collectors, all the numbers matched. In the muscle car world, matching numbers were the engine, transmission, and rear axle all correspond to the original build sheet, can make or break a sale. The crowd at Barrett-Jackson Palm Beach knew they were watching something special. As the bidding climbed past $150,000, you could feel the tension in that tent. These aren't just cars to these guys. They're pieces of their youth, reminders of a time when American automakers built cars that could melt your face off. When the hammer dropped at $192,500, it wasn't just a sale. It was validation that the LS6 Chevelle deserves its place among the greatest muscle cars ever built. Number 4. 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle SS 454 LS 6M 22, $220,000. Moving up to number 4, we've got another 1970 LS6 with the M22 transmission, but this one commanded $220,000 at Barrett-Jackson Scottsdale in 2025. That's $27,500 more than our number 5 car. And in the collector car world, that premium tells a story. This Chevelle was what collectors call a survivor, an original, unrestored car that had been babied and preserved rather than rebuilt. While restored cars are beautiful, there's something magical about an original survivor that can't be replicated. The paint might show some age. The interior might have that authentic patina that only comes with time, but it's real. It's exactly how it left the factory in 1970. And that authenticity is worth its weight in gold to serious collectors. Under the hood, that LS6 engine still wore all its original factory markings and date codes. The air cleaner, the valve covers, even the little decals and tags that most people never notice. They were all there, all original, all telling the story of a car that had been cherished for over 5 decades. But what really drove the bidding on this particular Chevelle was the paperwork. This car came with documentation that read like a muscle car novel. The original window sticker showing that $4,475 price tag. The original owner's manual with the dealer's stamp. Service records dating back to the early 70s. Even the original dealer paperwork from the Chevrolet dealership where it was first sold. In the collector car world, documentation is everything. It's the difference between a nice car and a museum-quality piece of history. And this Chevelle had it all. The Scottsdale crowd understood what they were looking at. As the auctioneer called out the bids, $180,000, $190,000, $200,000, you could see collectors doing mental calculations, trying to figure out if they could afford to let this piece of history slip away. At $220,000, one determined bidder decided this was his moment, and another piece of American muscle car history was preserved for the next generation. Number 3. 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle SS 454 LS6, $225,500. Taking the bronze medal at number 3 is a 1970 LS6 Chevelle that brought $225,500 at Barrett-Jackson Houston in 2022. This sale happened during a perfect storm in the collector car market. Muscle car values were surging, quality examples were getting harder to find, and guys who grew up dreaming about these cars finally had the money to buy them. This particular Chevelle represented everything that makes a perfect muscle car investment. It had undergone a comprehensive frame-off restoration, where every single component was either restored to factory specifications or replaced with correct, date-coded parts. We're talking about the kind of attention to detail that would make the original Chevrolet engineers proud. The exterior wore a stunning coat of tuxedo black paint that looked deep enough to swim in. The iconic SS stripes were perfectly applied. The chrome bumpers gleamed like mirrors, and those rally wheels looked like they just came out of the box. But it wasn't just about looks. This was a fully functional muscle machine that could still deliver the tire-smoking, pavement-pounding performance that made the LS6 Chevelle legendary. Inside, the car featured the desirable bucket seat and console configuration, upholstered in correct black vinyl that looked and felt exactly as it would have in 1970. The gauges were crisp and clear, the shifter was perfectly positioned, and when you sat behind that wheel, you could almost hear the ghost of every street race this car had ever won. Under the hood was where the magic really happened. That LS6 454 had been completely rebuilt to factory specifications and dyno tested to prove it was still making its full 450 horsepower. This wasn't just a show car, it was a weapon that could still run with modern muscle cars and probably embarrass a few of them in the process. The Houston crowd was particularly enthusiastic about this car. Texas has always been muscle car country, where bigger is better and horsepower is a religion. When that hammer fell at $225,500, it represented more than just a sale. It was a statement that American muscle cars deserve the same respect and prices as any exotic European sports car. Number 2. 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle SS 454 LS6 convertible, $253,000. Now, we're entering the stratosphere with our number 2 car, a 1970 LS6 Chevelle convertible that commanded $253,000. That jump from number 3 might not look like much, but that extra $27,500 represents the premium that comes with ultimate rarity. Here's a number that'll knock your socks off. Chevrolet only built 4,475 LS6 Chevelles in 1970. That's it. Out of all the Chevelles they made that year, only 4,475 got the legendary LS6 engine. But here's the kicker. Only a tiny fraction of those were convertibles. We're talking about maybe 200 cars, possibly fewer. Finding one today in collector condition is like finding a needle in a haystack. Think about what this car represented in 1970. You had 450 horsepower, a 4-speed transmission, and the wind in your hair. This was the American dream, wrapped in steel and chrome, the ultimate expression of freedom and power that only Detroit could build. This particular convertible was absolutely pristine. The restoration was concours quality, meaning it was good enough to win trophies at the most prestigious car shows in the country. Every detail was perfect, from the correct date-coded engine components to the proper interior trim pieces that were specific to convertible models. The power convertible top worked flawlessly, because when you're paying premium prices for premium performance, everything has to be perfect. The paint was show quality, the chrome was mirror bright, and the interior looked like it had never been sat in. But what really made this sale special was what it represented. Convertible muscle cars have always been the holy grail for collectors. They're rarer, they're more desirable, and they represent the ultimate expression of the muscle car era. When you combine that with the legendary LS6 engine, you've got automotive royalty. The bidding on this car was intense. As the price climbed past $200,000, then $225,000, then $250,000, you could feel the excitement building in that auction tent. These weren't just numbers being called out. This was history being made. When the hammer finally dropped at $253,000, it represented recognition that the LS6 convertible isn't just a car, it's a piece of American automotive art. Number 1. 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle SS 454 LS6 convertible, $1,242,000. And now, gentlemen, we reach the summit of Chevelle collecting, a 1970 LS6 convertible that sold for an absolutely mind-blowing $1,242,000 at Barrett-Jackson, Scottsdale in 2006. Let me say that again. $1.24 million for a Chevelle. This wasn't just a car sale. This was a seismic event that shook the entire collector car world to its core. To understand this astronomical price, you need to understand what was happening in 2006. The collector car market was on fire. Baby boomers were hitting their peak earning years, and muscle cars were finally getting the respect they deserved. But even in that heated market, nobody, and I mean nobody, expected a Chevelle to break the $1 million barrier. This wasn't just any LS6 convertible. This was the Holy Grail, the one that every collector dreams about, but never expects to find. It was absolutely pristine, numbers matching, with documentation that would make a museum curator weep with joy. This car had been owned by a single family since new, stored in a climate-controlled garage, and maintained regardless of cost. The restoration was nothing short of perfection. Every component was either original or correctly reproduced to exact factory specifications. The cranberry red paint was so deep and lustrous it seemed to glow under the auction lights. The black convertible top fit like a glove. The interior looked like it had been transported directly from 1970. But what really drove this record-breaking price was timing and significance. This sale came at a moment when the collector car world was finally recognizing that the greatest American muscle cars weren't just transportation. They were rolling sculptures, pieces of art that represented a unique moment in automotive history when horsepower was king and nobody cared about anything except going fast. The bidding on this car was unlike anything Barrett-Jackson had ever seen. As the price climbed past $500,000, the crowd fell dead silent. You could hear a pin drop in that tent. At $750,000, people were shaking their heads in disbelief. When it hit $1 million, the place erupted like a football stadium after a touchdown. And when that hammer finally fell at $1,242,000, automotive history was made. This wasn't just a record for Chevelles. It established American muscle cars as legitimate blue-chip collectibles that could command the same respect and prices as the most exotic European supercars. The impact of this sale rippled through the entire collector car world. Suddenly, every LS6 Chevelle owner was checking their insurance policies. Every muscle car enthusiast was dreaming of finding a barn find convertible. It was a watershed moment that elevated the entire muscle car segment and proved that American iron could play in the big leagues. The legacy lives on. Looking back at these 5 incredible sales, it's clear that the Chevrolet Chevelle SS has earned its place among the most desirable collector cars ever built. From our entry-level $192,500 example to that record-shattering $1.24 million convertible, these cars represent the absolute pinnacle of American automotive achievement. What makes these prices even more remarkable is what they represent. These Chevelles are more than just cars. They're time machines that transport us back to an era when American automakers were locked in a horsepower war, when muscle cars ruled the streets, and when the phrase, "there's no replacement for displacement," wasn't just a slogan. It was a way of life. The LS6454 engine that powered these legends was more than just a motor. It was a statement of intent. With 450 horsepower and 500 pound-feet of torque, it was one of the most powerful engines ever installed in a production car. It gave the Chevelle SS performance that could embarrass exotic sports cars costing twice as much. And it did it with that distinctive American muscle car attitude that said, "Yeah, I'm fast, and I don't care who knows it." But beyond the numbers and the prices, these Chevelles represent something deeper. They're symbols of American ingenuity, craftsmanship, and the relentless pursuit of performance. They remind us of a time when car manufacturers weren't afraid to build machines that prioritized excitement over efficiency, when the sound of a big block V8 was considered music, and when going fast was considered a fundamental right. Today, as we move toward an electric future filled with silent motors and computer-controlled everything, these muscle car legends become even more precious. They're the last of their kind, the final chapter in the story of unlimited American automotive excess. And as these Barrett-Jackson sales prove, collectors are willing to pay almost any price to own a piece of that history. The next time you see a Chevelle SS at a car show or cruise night, take a moment to appreciate what you're looking at. You're not just seeing a car, you're witnessing automotive royalty, a machine that represents the absolute peak of American muscle car achievement. And who knows, you might just be looking at the next $1 million Chevelle. These Barrett-Jackson sales prove that the American muscle car isn't just surviving in the collector market, it's thriving. And the Chevrolet Chevelle SS, with its perfect combination of style, performance, and rarity, is leading the charge. Thanks for joining me on this incredible journey through Barrett-Jackson's most expensive Chevelle sales. If you enjoyed this deep dive into muscle car history and want to see more content like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss our latest videos. And let me know in the comments, if money were no object, which of these legendary Chevelles would you choose for your dream garage? Until next time, keep the shiny side up and the rubber side down.